You by and large mentioned the education system in the state. Mr. Edmonds opened by noting that every year it seems to be that Louisiana comes in dead last. I was educated in the state back in the 90s, and here we are 15 years later, and it seems as though we're still in the same situation. An issue that's been exceedingly important to the residents of this area over the course of the last couple of years has been the creation of an independent school district. If elected to the legislature, would you support an initiative of creating an independent school district in the southeastern part of Baton Rouge for the betterment of education for the children who live in this area? And then let me just follow up the second part of that, and just broadly, what specifically do you think needs to be done in terms of education across the state to better it?
Thank you. As we have all talked about, education is a top priority for each of us, and it's a top priority in our state. And again, a good educational system leads to a ready workforce. Specifically, there was a bill, I think this past session, to create an independent school district. Part of that legislation did pass. I think the second part of that legislation was a constitutional amendment which failed to pass. I think that we need to continue to work together as a community to bring our schools up a notch. We have a long way to go. I have a lot of faith in Superintendent Drake and our school board right now. I'm encouraged by what they're doing. I'm encouraged by the BESI members that were just elected. And I think that we're going to continue toward a path of accountability and higher standards, and also a path of excellence. And that's what we need in our school systems. I would like to see us continue to come together as a community and try to solve our problems as a community. The second question, what was the second question? Specifically in terms of education.
Statewide.
Again, it's keeping our standards high, making teachers and students accountable, giving parents and students options and choices in where they send their children to school. Because not every child is fit for the school that may be nearest to them. They need options. So I'm a huge advocate of options, vouchers, of school, of charter schools, giving parents and teachers options. Very important.
Would you specifically be in favor of a constitutional amendment for the creation of St. George?
For the school district or the city?
The school district.
For the school district, I think that we have to look at what our district would want. It's something that I would have to ask the district and go from there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Heck.
So the question is, would I support the independent school district that was proposed over the last several years? Absolutely. I think that there's no silver bullet to the education problems that we have in this state. I think we need to, for lack of a better term, be shooting all the bullets out of every gun we can get our hands on when it comes to solutions that we can find for education. And I think independent school districts are one tool. I think educational savings accounts are another great tool. I don't think a lot of people have heard about them in the state of Louisiana yet, but Nevada just passed a revolutionary model here in their last legislative session, where it basically dollars follow the child. So I think I'd love to see us move there to where we wouldn't have a capacity issue. One of the issues that people brought up against St. George was, well, they're going to have to build a bunch of schools. In the educational savings account model, you don't have to build any schools. We use existing capacity. Imagine getting, the local portion of your money and the state portion, the MFP dollars. So that's about $12,000 a child, $11,500. And imagine taking that and saying, I want to send my child to Parkview. I want to send my child to Dunham. I want to send my child to St. Thomas More. Imagine taking that, it's specific dollars, it's your tax dollars, where you give it back to the school. There's no means test. It's basically universal voucher. It's an incredible model. They're doing it in other places, and that's what we need to start doing here. So the independent school district, absolutely. I think we should have 100 independent school districts. Texas, that is the Texas model, and they are doing extremely well with it. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Edmonds.
Education is a passion of mine, and I'm very excited about some things that I believe I've learned through the years to try to have some input. We're in favor of homeschoolers and private school, but if you're running in House District 66 or 69, you know you're going to have to deal with the environment of the public arena. And I agree quickly to say that Warren Drake is an absolute fabulous hire for East Baton Rouge Parish. I'm meeting with him on a regular occasion. He's a hard-working man, got an old-school mentality, believes that leadership, everything rises and falls on leadership, and he believes that the principal ought to lead his schools with excellence. So I'm very grateful for that, and I think we all ought to always encourage him. He's got a big job on his hand. As a part of what we do statewide, I would like for us to consider what we need to do in remediation. Our children, by 4th grade in the state of Louisiana, are already behind some of them 2.5 grade levels, which means, basically, the bottom line, our children can't read. So by 4th grade, we're in trouble. 8th grade, we're double the trouble, if you will. And here you have a standard, which we're all for standards, high standards for our children and our teachers. But let's just take the role of an 8th grade. Let's just take an 8th grade teacher that's teaching at an 8th grade level. What does he or she do when the student's reading at the 5.5 grade level? What do they do? It's absolutely impossible for a 5th grade reader to keep up with an 8th grade curriculum. It's impossible. And so what we must do is we must create some remediation programs to pull our children out of that environment and catch them up. I've been successful in this multiple times when we place those children in outside of the name of like a computer lab, because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense like that. But we're talking about a curriculum, a computer, and a full-time teacher in these laboratories. Now here's what happens. We see that the students at their own pace, some 6 weeks, some 6 months, some a year, finally get back to reading level, and they can go right back into the mainstream. Let me just tell you, our teachers are for this. I've had the privilege of talking with many of our teachers. They are so excited about somebody that will see the plague that they're in. We've got some great school teachers in the state of Louisiana, and everything is around the local school teacher. We've got to listen to them, and we've got to help them and help these children get back on grade level. We'd start with a pilot program in East Baton Rouge Parish with Warren Drake and implement our first, and then we'd move parish by parish until we're statewide with a great remediation program that's going to bring our children back to reading level.
Would you be in favor, if elected, would you support a constitutional amendment for the creation of school districts?
You know, I've said all along, I believe that people should have already been allowed the opportunity to choose. That's just democracy. And so, you know, if the people decide to choose, that's what we should be doing.
Thank you. Mr. Orso.
Whenever you hear these great ideas, you have to ask, how are you going to pay for it? So where's the money going to come from for these remediation programs, to hire the extra teachers, for the computers, for the extra classrooms that you have to build? It sounds great, but you really have to pay for it, just like a road construction project. If you want to build a new bridge, if you want to build a new on-ramp or exit ramp, you still have to find a way to pay for it. So remediation programs cost money. That's increasing government bureaucracy. So is that what you're advocating?
I'd be glad to talk about it if you would.
So when I'm looking at the ISD, and thank you for recognizing it, I was the one who sponsored the statewide constitutional amendment for the independent school district. It did not make it, well, we made it to the House as a resolution, and we got it approved, and then we were going to the Senate, but because of the talks for the budget, we ran out of time to get this approved in the time frame that we had. We only have a 60-day session that we're working with this year. In that session, there were 1,100 bills that were filed, over 800 resolutions, and in the end, the governor signed 473 of those laws, which became acts. So I am going to go back and fight to get the ISD created, not only for East Baton Rouge Parish. I think it should be for the entire state. And Ryan alluded to the Texas model, and it's very successful, although there are some challenges that you have to work through with funding and equity and funding. But I think it's very important that we do that, because ISDs provide another alternative. In addition to public schools, charter schools, you have to look at the ISD, again, not just for East Baton Rouge Parish, but for the entire state.
And thank you, Mr. Orso. A lot of conversation tonight, a lot of even texts that are coming in related to the budget. So I'd like to ask you guys specifically, you're running for the